Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner. Tonight, we're going to talk about how events can sort of boost your body, mind, spirit, etc. And this is coming right on the tails of a whole bunch of us just got back from Gulf Wars. And I know I personally definitely got a big spirit boost off of that. And a lot of other folks did as well. So I'm going to hand it off to Duke Brannos to get us started on this topic.
All right. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the show again tonight. Hopefully, but as usual, people will be joining as we move along. I know we've had actually a couple of comments already, personal and even one online that we'll try to cover tonight for sure. I think we see both sides of, there's a lot of struggle in what we do in general. And I think hopefully tonight's episode will help give you ideas around the benefits of sometimes going somewhere else. If you can look up a lot around travel teams and things like that for youth that have a lot of benefits. Of course, there's pros and cons to everything, but I know it was an interesting Gulf Wars for me, and I think Bari and even we'll probably see what Sadb has to say as well. Around, there was a lot of positivity going on, which was interesting because I think we get a lot of positivity when we go to places, but it's amazing. It happened at Penzic last year, and Gulf Wars is even more in the effect that everybody was very happy to see each other and really be involved and at least on the heavy field for me. I'm going to look on the, and because this was the first day I was coming back from recovery. So I had about 6 weeks off. So I just stayed on the pickup field, and I'm going to tell you, the culture there was really, really good. And like anything, there are some that may not get that, and may not get the positive benefit out of that or positive feel. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, because I think it's important that we all look out for each other in the end, right? Because we're all trying to get better together. If you're trying to get better by yourself, in the effect of you want to just beat everybody up, I'm going to guess I have seen a lot of people come and go because they don't last very long. Because if you're really not part of that community, then you know what? It's easy not to fight you. So that's one of our best rules that we have, and I've seen people live by that rule. So, but tonight, let's start the show off a little bit with our Gulf Wars experience. Bari, just a quick question: how many Gulf Wars have you been
to? This is my third. I went to Golf NATO, and I just looked. Well, actually, I didn't have to look it up. Facebook reminded me. It showed me the picture of my armor drying out in front of a hotel room. Because the tornado came through. So that was 2016. And then I went to Gulf Wars last year. I'll be completely honest. It was my first year as a knight, and I wanted to fight in that river as a knight. I want to do a little bit of a tour. And then this year was a complete last minute decision. I had already planned on doing Burqa, and I kind of not a big fan of traveling. I like it, but it's just like, it's a little bit of an extra stress, and it's easier not to travel. And this might actually tie in a little bit to the discussion. I was sitting at home thinking, I haven't really done a whole lot in the last few weeks other than just local fight practice. And I got a little bit of time. I had some vacation time. My work projects got pushed back a little bit. I asked my wife if she'd mind if I went. She said that, we had the money, so it was fine. And on Friday, I looked at the weather and I looked at the fight schedule, and I planned a trip from Sunday through Wednesday. And made it down there. I got to surprise Cormac, now Sir Cormac, from Trimaris, and originally from Ethelmark. I popped into his vigil, and he was not expecting that because I wasn't supposed to be a Gulf War. So, so I would say that's the beginning of the bonding experiences with people you have down there. Was able to pop into his vigil. I popped into a size vigil. I'm from the East Kingdom, where I live in the East Kingdom. So Penzic is one of our big wars, as is, Brannos and Sadb. being the evil enemies and the worst fighters, of course, the worst side. But anyway, so with that, it's funny. I actually ran into some of my Atlantean friends down there, and I ran into Duke Vlad, and he apologized to me because he waved as he walked by and didn't stop to talk. We ran into each other later, and we both said, "It's like, we've got different friends to hang out with down here." So I kind of I've been making more friends with the people from the Mid Realm and some people from Anstiora and some people from Trimaris. So particularly with the traveling aspect of it, I think if you might be in a little bit of a, I don't want to say a funk, but maybe if things are just kind of getting a little of the same old routine, sometimes traveling will sort of open your eyes to something a little bit different. You end up making new friends. And I know last year, particularly, we had a really big crew from Canada, which might not mean anything to people from other kingdoms, but they're the complete opposite end of the kingdom. And so it was a moment for me to actually bond with a lot of people within my own kingdom that I never get to hang out with. And now every time I see them at an event, we instantly go up, we shake hands, we have a beer, we talk. If we're across from each other, we'll give little jabs and poke fun and stuff like that. So that's a short version. I will say one other thing I discovered that really boosts your spirits. If you're on whatever this, I don't know if you can see whatever the app is for StreamYard, there's these like little hearts you can hit. And these hearts just like float up like crazy.
They do.
It does a really cool thing is that then they float some hearts after it that makes it look like other people are agreeing with your hearts. I know a robot that does that, but it's been boosting my spirits.
Oh, good. That's awesome.
That's what I'll say for now. I've got more. So.
Oh yeah, we got a whole episode. I think for my side, it was very interesting because I only participated on the pickup. Oops, sorry, Sadb. I didn't realize you're back. Okay. On the pickup field. And it was kind of eye-opening. I tell you the truth. I went to Gulf Wars 3 when it first moved there, and it was just a blast. We had maybe 10 mid-realmers there, and a bunch of Meridians I knew, and but as kind of long distance friends, and it was probably one of the best times I've had at a war. And over time, it kind of fell off for me. I stopped enjoying it. My wife goes all the time. I stopped. I was like, it's a fun little war. But the pickups weren't as good as Pensic at the time. I will have to say they changed dramatically. And the battles are smaller, although different ways they're fought. But realistically, there's a ravine there's a woods at Pensic. There's, if you do a one-on-one, I just enjoyed the time with all my really close friends at Pensic a little bit more. So I just took the time to do that. This year I went after a lot of prodding for a number of years. I was going to go 2020, and they canceled it because of COVID. And I finally made it back, thanks to Sadb. And it was good. I have to say it was really good for me. Even though I couldn't throw a shot worth anything. And my targeting is poor and stuff, but I got to fight some of the best fighters that I know in the SCA. I got to fight some of the folks I hadn't had a chance to fight, even long-term folks. And, like Duke Fabian, I hadn't had ever. We've been around that society for about the same length of time, but never had a chance to fight him. And I think he appreciated it too. We were both talking, we didn't get enough time to talk about technique and all of that stuff, but it was also a time that we all got to talk about technique and help others. I mean, there were so many people coming, just looking for fights, looking for help. I got to help so many different people. It's really the true one thing I really love doing. So it was a wonderful week in that case. Body held up, kinda. There was a few days there, but I got to meet a lot of people I just didn't even know, and but they were asking for help. I got to hit 3-4 days of help with somebody. I got a lot of people that just came up and just wanted to meet, which was kind of weird, but it was it was.
Yeah, I fanboyed all over you at one time too.
What's that?
Then I fanboyed all over you at one time,
Yeah,
Joe.
that's okay. I mean, it was interesting. It was fun. I mean, I tell you, I had somebody come up and they happen to be a king of another kingdom. Is like, I'm up way out in the boondocks of Colorado. And like all I had was, a couple of us had your YouTubes to watch. Thanks to Tristan up there who posted all that shit back in the day. And, and that's how they started, and it was really, really nice meeting them and seeing some of the benefits of, kind of staying on this path. Tristan and I have been on this path for a long time, right, Tristan?
Yeah.
I mean, I think your DVDs came out in what the late 90s.
Yeah, and I inherited some from Duke Finn, who was actually collecting them, and he filmed a
Yep.
few, and he kind of got busy. He handed them to me. I added a couple of titles. Yeah, it was back in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So and they're still floating around. So it's so I really it was truly a wonderful time, and it's what we're going to talk about a little bit. I mean, we'll talk some of the negatives, but I think for me, I was happy I went, and it was a long drive there and back and all of that stuff. But in the end of the thing, I kind of feel refreshed, even though I was beat up and tired and still bruised and all of that kind of stuff. So, I think we all experience those kinds of events we go to and get refreshed. It could even be in your own kingdoms, right? I mean, there are some times I go to an event in our own kingdom that's like, man, this is what I needed, right? Bess, do you have like an event in your kingdom that you feel that way a little bit about, or have maybe in the past?
Well, actually, yeah. So I love my dogs, but really they kind of ruined my SCA life because, if I'm going to a day event, I can only really be away for like 12 hours because it's really not fair to ask them to not pee for 12 hours. So if my only other option is to board them, and it's expensive. It's like $150 a day. I have to put them in Friday night and then got to pick them up Sunday. So it costs me $300 a day. But just recently, and I just mean in the last couple of weeks, I've just made the decision that going to events, and not just being at events, but being at events after the events, going out to dinner with my friends and hanging out in hotels, that is worth it to me. And I'm lucky I have a good job. That's worth it to me to board the dogs. So I've made a conscious decision that this year I will be hitting more events because I enjoy being at the events, but I also enjoy all the after event stuff. That is for me some of the best times, and I've really missed that. So that's what I'll be doing this year, getting out to events more and better.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting because they talk about that in one of the travel books, is that you kind of have to, Bess, you have it's a little easier for you because all you have to do is talk to the dogs and you guys figure out what you can afford and what you can't. But but as a family, sometimes, and in fact, we just had a post about this. Sometimes that you have to sit and you have to make a solid choice as a family of how much benefit do I get and what's the repercussion of it. And when you have lots of kids doing it, it makes it really tough. So in travel sports, that's a hard thing. But even in our sport, we have a lot of possible travel, and there's a huge benefits. I mean, reading through some of the mental benefits, it's like some of the numbers out of that are like 10% reduction in anxiety and depression, 19% lower scores in withdrawal and depression, 17% reduction in social problems, 12% lower scores in attention problems. All of these mental positive things come out of it. But the other side of it is, and I think some of that, before I move on to the other side of it, some of that is coming out of that because you have a very kind of grind. You're just same thing over and over and over and over again. And that could just be, hey, I have to do the same thing at home over and over and over and over again. And a break is really worth it, you know, and sometimes you need those breaks. But, you know, the negative side is, you know, there's money and, you know, time and effort and, you know, can your car get there? You know, all of these types of things, you know, there's other negative pieces on doing things like that.
But you raise a valid point, Brannos, because one of the things, and like we saw it during COVID, but one of the studies, some of the studies out recently are talking about mental health and people who are able to withstand a lot of adversity. And I'm thinking again about COVID, were people who felt that they had a sense of community, that they had people around them. We've discovered, you know, as coaches here, that Coach's Corner really helped us feel a sense of community. And I know living alone and up here in Canada, we isolated hard, that I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel abandoned, so to speak, not to the same extent that I think I would have. And I think that is one of the health benefits that we get when we do visit with the SCA. You know, one of the reasons I'm prioritizing getting my dogs into the kennel, it's a conscious choice. That's how I'm going to spend my money, because it's good for my mental health to feel a real sense of community. I kind of felt that I haven't been as close to my friends as I want to be. And this is one way, this sense of community is another way, spending time afterwards is a way for me to feel better with them. So I absolutely view it mental health benefits, even if you can't necessarily, you know, I've gone through some injuries recently. I would go to the events and I would marshal or constable on a list, or I'd help, you know, the list table, getting the fighters ready to go, participating in the fighting, being an active participant, still engaging with the fighters, even if I couldn't fight myself.
So Tristan, do you get the same kind of thing when you take your folks out from the club?
Yeah, we will sometimes, or I guess in the past, kind of prior to COVID, we would do things like host friendship seminars, or we would go visit another dojo in another city. We have a sister dojo of an instructor that's a really good friend of mine, and so I'll take my students there, or he would bring his students up to mine. It really was a great cross-pollination of breaking what we would call dojo hypnosis, which is you have a practice group that gets so focused that they lose sight of other influences, and they get into their own patterns, and they become good at dealing with each other in their own patterns. And I noticed this back even in the SCA with groups, when you only fight the same 4 or 5 people every practice, and you know what to expect from them, you get used to how they fight, and then you go visit somebody, or somebody visits your practice, and it's something you've never seen before, and it totally throws you off. And so that's kind of the dojo hypnosis of the SCA, is your limited exposure. And so going and traveling breaks that. You get to see things you don't see or, you know, take in other interpretations of how fighting works, and things that work that you may never have been exposed to. It might work really well for you.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm going to throw a couple of comments up here because I just want to talk about them. And again, we also have a comment that was posted way earlier, or just before the show, that I want to talk about as well. But I'm going to show this one here because this is a real thing for a lot of people, right? And I think we overlook the positive benefits from being around your friends sometimes. I think sometimes we look and it's, you know, the part here is the challenge financially. Sometimes it's easy. Well, you know, why are you doing SCA stuff if you're challenged financially? Well, you know, why do you have a TV and watch TV when, you know, you could just drop cable or whatever? There's a certain level where mentally you have to be engaged, but even more, there's that level of being around others that there's a benefit there that you can't put a price point on, right? And I think for some of us, we don't understand that just because someone's challenged financially, they still need the same things we need in many ways. And they are working really hard to try to figure it out. And I think we do have to watch criticizing others. You know, I think the people doing it have to make good financial decisions, but we also have to understand when they just need it mentally to be around their friends, and they choose places to go to be around them so that they can just continue and hopefully get out of the place they're in. So, I would task everybody to essentially, if you know somebody like this, two things you can do. You can help them. You know what? That's the simplest thing. One of the simplest ways you can help them, right? And for some of us, that's easier now that we have so many older people in the SCA, right? Sorry to throw it out that way, but we also have more cash flow than we ever did before. And you can tell by the armor, and you can tell by a lot of different things. But, I tell you what, $50, $100 to somebody that can't afford it as much could, mentally save them in some ways. And, that goes a long way. And it's, helping others is it's not a weakness. It's a strength. And they, and again, on the other end of that, just remember, be careful if you do help others, be careful on how you judge that later. So I just wanted to touch base on that one. I have seen that, and it kind of hit a point to me, because I've seen people that needed to be with others and maybe couldn't afford it, and it just meant going to pick them up, or driving them to an event, or giving them gas money, or a hotel, spot a hotel room, or whatever it takes. So and
we've had a couple of years of a lesson of what it's like when you don't get enough social contact.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely had those years, right, Tristan?
Mm-hmm.
And they're brutal. Sadb posted one here, and we probably should have her talk about it, but here's an example. I could hear her laughing, I think. Or no, that might have been Bess. I have the benefit
I was in fact laughing as well.
Okay. I have the benefit to see this, and I have seen her struggling. Tell you the truth, she knows I push hard, and she also has probably seen in the last 6 months or a year, I haven't pushed nearly as hard as I used to. And a lot of that came just, her work got really, really rough. And, sometimes you need that break, and that's what vacations are for. So, Sadb, did that work for you for going to Golf Wars?
Yeah, my job is slowly trying to kill me from the soul out. And yeah, so that's a whole different story. But no, I was deep in the depths of depression and burnout, and I'm still not 100% out. 1 week is not enough to fully fix it, but I was spending my entire workday just having an extended panic attack, and didn't want to do anything in the evenings, and just sitting around like a lump and hating everything. And then we get to Golf Wars, and I was excited about Golf Wars, and now I'm here and I don't know what to do. And so it took the travel day and the first day of I slept super late, wandered out, looked at the pickups, and was I don't know, man. And forced myself to put on armor and go fight in battles. And after that was when I finally started feeling like a human again. And by the end of the week, I was having a good time. I was hanging out. I was talking to people. I was doing all of the normal things that normal people do when they're having a good time with their friends. And yeah, this week being back at work, night and day difference in just how miserable I was before versus now. No, things aren't great, but I can handle it now. that mental health boost is a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this back at Tristan a little bit. So just, we're talking about a lot of mental health boosts, and we just had an episode on that. And I think here we are again, right, talking about it. But, the episode, I kind of bound those together, and it's a little bit Japanese in feeling, and Bess is going to go, oh, great, more woo-woo with the whole body, mind, spirit gig, right? But I think we do cover all of those things. Wouldn't you say, Tristan?
Yeah, we do if you allow it. It's very easy to take the mental baggage of your work or of your mundane life and pack it alongside of your tent and your armor and bring it with you and haul it out and not be able to set that baggage down. We had a the dojo that I started in, we had a bell that the instructor would hit at the beginning of class. And I remember one of the first classes he showed, he said, I want you to shut your eyes. And he rang the bell. And he said, I want, when I ring the bell, I want you to listen for when you can't hear the tone anymore. And of course, as a bell, it rang for, many seconds, but you had to focus on, I can still hear it. 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 I can barely hear it. Can I hear it still? Yes, I can. That mental process helped you put the baggage down, just focusing on the sound of the bell. And maybe there was a Pavlovian response of, if you go at class after class after class, you get used to, how do you start class? You clear your mind, you listen to the ring of the bell, you set your baggage down, and you focus on what you are doing right there. Now, I've reflected and thought, when I went to Penzic, when I went to Gulf Wars, when I go to these events, that was putting up my pavilion, setting up my camp, being with my friends. That was the process for me of putting the mental baggage down of what I had from real life. And it was just another type of meditation. Like we've talked in some of the previous episodes about the mentality thing of, it's hard to sit and just clear your mind and meditate. Well, it's a moving meditation, clearing your camp space, setting up your pavilion, unloading your gear, getting it organized the way you want to camp for the next week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I saw that the process was the same way it is. I felt it when I'd put my armor on. It was not just me strapping stuff to my body. It was me making the armor part of me, spending 5 minutes or whatever it was to clear out everything. Like, I have a job to do now, not a job like go get a paid job, but I have tasks to do now. I have improvement for myself to do now. I have to be, a part of my melee team now. Everything else, put it down. This is what I have to do at the moment. And that moment of clarity was when that helmet slid on. That was the Pavlovian response of, everything else is off the table, and now I'm going to go do what I need to do. Again, a meditation. To me, it just felt like another meditation.
I think you have to be willing to do it, though. So
absolutely, it does not happen by all on by itself. It has to happen because you are focusing on it that way and build the habit. Yeah,
I was in Penzic, in the before times, and I got a text from work, and stupidly I responded, and then they started asking me more questions, and I started answering. And it was like two things, like, oh, I am so important that I can't even go on vacation. I'm so valuable, like to insurance. But, oh, yeah, I'm so great. And like, I let myself be sucked back into that, right? Like, as opposed to going, you know what? I'm on freaking vacation. No, I'm not going to answer it. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to pick up my phone. I'm not going to text somebody. And for example, right now on work, we have somebody on STD, short-term disability, but I giggle like an idiot every
I would giggle too.
Well, so like I needed something from them, and her boss was like, well, just send her a little Teams message, but tell her we don't expect her to work, but ask her what she did. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. That was also me saying, I'm not going to drag somebody into work when they're off, dealing with family issues. So we have to be willing to put it to one side. In my case, I had to be, I too, Sadb was being killed from the soul out. And I have decided now that when I'm not at work, I'm not at work. So I'm just going to not respond. I'm going to put my ego to one side. I'm actually not that important. What? This mega company can run without me? As it turns out, yes. And I'm going to let it. And if it can't, it needs to pay me a whole lot more money. So I'm going to let it find out how valuable I am. And then we'll go from there. So I think that's something that we all have to do. Put the phone down. Don't check in. And I know we all want to help out coworkers because we're all good people. Yeah, don't do that. It's like, seriously, and encourage them not to do it as well. Let it go. Let it go.
Bess, I brought my laptop to Golf Wars, and I decided I will not do that ever again. It was a last minute decision. I was in a hotel room. I've got a responsibility at my job that it's one of those things I could have asked someone else to cover it for me, and they would have, But then I kind of in the back of my mind, I thought, well, if I do that, too often, then why do they need me? And yeah, no, I'm not going to do that again, because it was just it was an extra level of stress of waking up every morning. I stayed in a hotel, but waking up every morning thinking, okay, the battle's at this time. It's Gulf Wars, so plus or minus 3 hours to that, because they could change anything at the last minute. And I want to wake up early enough to take care of what I need to take care of. But what if I get there and it's harder than I thought? It's going to take longer than I thought. And it was just, it was so much stress.
And see, and I do understand that. And I understand people, who bring their laptops and have to maybe go into town and grab a hotel room because they're on vacation, but they're remote working. This is the way they've managed to get time away from work. And I'm not talking, I understand that. You're like, I really want to do this thing, but I have to make the compromise. But the decompression part, if you really want to do that, please, as much as you can, let work go. Focus on one of the most medieval things we do, which is focus on the politics. Like I know that sounds funny, but think about it. Power and prestige in the Middle Ages were who got what awards and all that stuff. So yeah, you talk about that. Talk about who's getting vigiled. Talk about who's becoming a pelican. Talk about who just picked up spear and did great. Or wow, did you see that? We have to help that person because they don't know how to use spear. That's the kind of thing that you can focus on at an event, at a war. Someone's tent blew down. Let's go help somebody, and you're in the moment. Even if you're not, it's not the fighting, but you're in the moment at the event. And I really encourage people to do that.
Can I touch on something real quick that Tristan said earlier? Yeah. So Tristan was talking about the value of traveling and how you get to see different types of fighters. And I wanted to sort of touch on that a little bit, because this is something now, I'm sure Tristan figured this out a long time ago. And this is kind of a newer thing for me, because as I said to some of you, before the show started, and to anyone who's listening out there, I got knighted mainly as a melee sort of specialist, a spear person, or even like a multi-weapons, weapons depth kind of person. And now I'm coming up in singles on 2-sword, and I've still got a lot to learn. And I met him. One of the things I've started to pick up on in the last couple of years, like some people might say, oh, you're doing really well, or I really got to worry about you. And I'm like, yes, you do. But there's a lot of people that can sneak in kills on me because I'm just not used to seeing all the different styles. And it's not even like, this person does a hanging guard style, and this is an old castle person, this is an Ansurian. Sometimes they're just doing goofy stuff. You don't know. It's just all these little different ways that people move. And the more and more and more you see different kinds of people, the more you get less and less surprised by that kind of stuff. I can say now, again, from the other side of things, I'm a much more experienced spear. So I can always compare myself against myself, so as a spear, there's usually not a whole lot that surprises me out there anymore, because I've done it for so long. So there's a lot of like, I'll see somebody, like I might be across from Tristan at some war at some point, and maybe he'll surprise me, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of category. I already know he's tall. I know what that means. I know he's got a lot of experience. If he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, I know he's trying to trick me. Like there's all those kinds of things I know out there. And same thing with Brannos. I've seen Brannos' style before. So there's a lot of stuff. But with 2-sword, I'm still getting surprised by people. So traveling around, and unfortunately, I couldn't do pickups this year because I'm still rehabbing a shoulder. But I did get to watch a lot of pickups. I did get to study it. I did get to hang out with Duke Sven and Sir Ragnar from Anstiora down there. And get some more tips from them and talk to some other people. So yeah, there's a real value to that. That at some point, I think maybe that clicks where people start to realize. We even have some local fighters. I'm trying to tell them, hey, start getting around to more practices. They're like, oh no, I go to this practice that has this really good teacher. I'm like, well, we'll keep going to that, but like every now and then skip that one and go get some exposure elsewhere.
Yeah, if I could jump in on that concept too, because I've seen a lot of people fall into this trap, and it's usually they're in a group and they got a really good fighter in there, somebody that they look up to, they've got a lot of experience, they're really talented, and they basically say, if I can do well against him or her, then I'll do good against other people that are of that caliber. And so they say, I'm just going to stay at this practice, I'm not going to travel very much, and by fighting this person, they're going to give me a lot of experience and I'm going to get really good. And they will get good, but they'll go find somebody that will show them something they've never seen, and they will fall prey to it very easily and quickly. And they'll get frustrated. They're like, wait a second, I'm better than this, just because they haven't traveled and cross-pollinated with other styles and other approaches. There are so many. That's why I call it a martial art, right? Not a martial science. An art has different artists that have different techniques and methods that are vastly different. And just because you're good at one doesn't mean that's going to cover you for the adaptability you need to go against different people doing crazy stuff, or even just unusual things. You're not sure what they are. Tremendous value in that exposure.
One of the things I can add also to going to these events from the melee side is so typically, and it depends where people are from. I think a lot of people have like their home events. I know, well, for Tristan it was probably Pennsic for you as well. I would think would be like the more common event you would go to. Certainly the rest of us, it is Mid-Realm and East, and then Bess, you were Mid-Realm and now you're Eldemir. So same thing, that's the big one. So usually when you go to those events, you're kind of working with your own household, you're working with your own units or the kingdom. But like at Gulf Wars, we had a very small East Kingdom contingent this year. And some of the battles we had people, we had one battle in particular, the bridge battle, that was at the same time as a rapier battle. And so the crossovers, someone went to the rapier battle. So I got to mix in with the Mid-Realm unit. And that was a lot of fun, working with the Mid-Realm commanders, watching how they did things and sort of taking notes like, oh boy, they really don't do this as well as we do this, or oh boy, they do this differently we do this. And you just get these different experiences and you get to take that back. And so now I know all the secret codes that the Mid-Realm uses, and the hand signals. And,
great. Now you know when we steal second.
yeah, exactly. So if you want to find out our stuff, though, you have to learn how to speak French Canadian.
Ah, mais je suis Québécois.
Sounds just like the Canadians.
I was born in Montreal.
Okay.
So it's funny because I do hear the French Canadians talking, and they don't keep their voices low. So I have at times relayed things backwards. Okay, guys, this is what's going to happen. Wait, but you don't sound like one of us. No, I'm an Anglophone. So anyhow, we've been talking a lot about the advantages of traveling and going out and meeting people, but one of there are some disadvantages, and so I'm just going to touch on some highlights that Brannos talked about, and then Bari talked about. Tristan, it's you and me now. It seems like.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie. One at a time, people are dropping off. I guess we're having some technical issues.
Like, are we driving people away? We've got 25 viewers. I don't know. Like,
yeah, no.
I don't know why Brannos dropped, but I had to get another beer. So
okay.
Well, of course.
So the cons of going to events and traveling are, and particularly if you're part of a team, like if a household, or even if you're talking mundanes like a football team, or in Canadian terms, a hockey team. So it's demanding, and it's not just for you and your kids. I have a friend whose daughters were on dance teams, and it's the expenses associated with hotels and traveling and time off work and coordinating 18 people can be herding cats, and that can be really, really significant. If you're like me, I'm the daughter of a pilot. We leave on time, we arrive on time, and there's no deviating. Well, the SCA is all about, deviating from time. So that, I find that incredibly stressful. And, when we talk about getting ready for events, there's a huge time commitment, getting ready for Gulf Wars. I know, for example, Brannos, for his local group, he keeps tents and whatnot at his place, and it's everybody coming to his place. So he's opening up his house for people to do repairs and tent repairs and keeping track of what's doing what. So there's kind of like paperwork related. And if you're not a big paperwork fiend, then, that kind of sucks. Like, in all seriousness. And if you're talking about a Gulf War or Pennsic, if you're talking about big events, you're talking about things like someone's got to be someone's got to be like the camp organizer, where the tents are going and setting up the roads in your camp and making sure there's sufficient space. So there can be some downsides, like the technical stuff, the not fun. Who's arriving on what day? Did you pre-reg? Do you have a tent? What size is your tent? What do you mean you brought a spare tent? We don't have the land for a spare tent. Who's going to arrive early, like for Penzic, right? Who's going to be your landocrat or land agent at Penzic? And then I've never been a land agent, but by all accounts, it can be a hellacious job, and kudos to all of you who do it, because damn, that's what I got. So there's all that stuff associated with it. And those stresses and traveling, like I have friends for us up here in Ontario, it's about a 24-hour driving time. So if you're traveling with friends, after about 8 hours, people get on my nerves. They like stupid music choices, and I don't want to hear their stupid music anymore. I want them to listen to my good music. And are they going to tell me about their cat one more freaking time? Because frankly, I don't care. I've heard this story, and it's these kind of frictions that can also result in long car trips you have to be aware of.
Yeah, even worse, you have to drive home with them.
Right now. So, for example, my friend Sir Kelvin and I, we traveled to France last year. We did a little tour of the 100-Year War battle sites, and we had to say ahead of time, we're probably going to get mad at each other. It's a situational thing. I still like you. You're still going to like me, but I'm going to be frustrated that we can't find the location or we can't do that. And we actually talked about how we were going to handle being mad at each other before we left, because it's a realistic kind of thing. And when you're 24 hours driving time, squished in a little car because you got like spears coming on either side of your head and you can't relax, that's a consideration. So that is one of the cons of going to faraway events.
All right, real quick one, and I apologize for dropping off. I had some computer issues, but I think we're talking a lot. Again, we're still kind of talking on all of these, the positive and negative side of travel. One thing I'd like to still talk about is how did it affect your body, right? I mean, so I think sometimes that practice we get really used, and Tristan, you just talked about this a little bit. We get really used to just doing the same thing over and over again. And what happens in that scenario is your body adjusts to what you do. And soon you're not nearly pushing yourself as hard as maybe you were. In fact, you're playing in the safe zone at some point. And I think sometimes breaking that and going somewhere where you're essentially, you're there, you don't want to waste any time, you put extra effort in, maybe calibration's different, maybe, you're learning from lots of different people that are pushing you to a level of energy that you're not used to. But, this is the opportunity of kind of pushing yourself back beyond those spaces where you're comfortable. And I think that's a pretty large benefit about, going somewhere different where you have different people pushing you in different ways. And I know that happens at seminars, martial arts seminars all the time. I mean, they'll be like, all right, I'm glad you guys are Aikido guys, because we're going to do some, BJJ today, and you're going to be rolling on the floor doing shit you never did. Is that something you guys do? And how do your students feel after they do that?
What do you mean, being kind of taken out of their comfort zone and put into something else?
Physically,
most will, I don't say most. My particular students, I don't think represent the large body, but when I go to seminars and I'll see 100, 150 people there, or 50 or 60, you'll see the ones that will basically say, great, give it to me, I'm going to eat it up with a spoon. Whatever you're going to feed me, I'll take it. And then you'll see people who are kind of like, why are we doing that? Like, they're kind of showing up to go through the motions, but what they're actually going there to learn, they don't seem to be as engaged with. And I've noticed not only that, but I've also noticed instructors that are going through the motions. They've described something over and over and over again. They're bored with teaching it. They have to teach it for the 98,000th time, and they just don't really care. They don't really care if the students pick it up, but they get paid, so they go through the motions, and it's a lackluster experience. And, you know, it's a lackluster experience for a passionate teacher to meet a student who says, well, what you're showing, I don't really care if I learn. So, okay, I'm going to go through the motions, but I don't really care. And you can see that from space. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But when you get a hungry student with an instructor that is passionate about what he's showing, that's where you really learn a lot. It's sad.
Yeah,
It's rare.
Yeah, I think you're in a situation where a lot of times those seminars are, you know, literally 8-10 hours long sometimes.
Oh yeah, or 3 days.
Or 3 days of back to back like that, right? I mean, that takes a huge. I think it pushes some people to the point where it's like, wow, I didn't know I could do that.
Yep. What it really taught me was to spot the two different exhaustions. You can spot physical exhaustion, and then you can spot mental exhaustion. You try to learn for 6 hours in a day, your brain will fill up around an hour and a half, around maybe 2 hours for those people that are more mentally agile. But boy, you can see when somebody's brain is just leaking out through their ear because they can't absorb anymore. You can flood somebody or even a large group of people so deeply or so hard that they just can't. You can throw more information at them, but their eyes are just spinning in their head. They don't even know what you're talking about.
It just doesn't stick anymore. Yeah.
So as an instructor, absorption rate is a factor. And I would say to anybody that's looking to go to Gulf Wars or Penzic or anything, I'm going to go out on the pickup field for the whole day. Like, good luck. You know, you could try. I mean, and the nice part is you can take breaks and relax for an hour, relax your mind, relax your body. You go to a martial arts seminar, you maybe get lunch. That's it. You're out there listening, studying, analyzing, testing, trying, failing even more, trying to figure out why am I failing? And you're doing this, it's almost like you're designing a machine and it's not working and your brain is just on overload. That can happen.
So that's interesting. So we're talking, like, the purpose of tonight's episode is like, hey, go to events, it's good for you. But I would possibly, what we should be saying is, I know there are times I go to events because I feel like I have to go to the event. Oh, I got to go to this event.
Here we go.
I feel like I have an obligation, a responsibility to go. But maybe, you know, it's easier to go or to not go and to save my energy and my focus for the events that I really want to be at. So I can spend whatever energy I've got speaking to the people, absorbing the information, as opposed to, you know, having energy leaking out my ears at events I really just
not really
do. Yeah. So
yeah, and I think this goes right to Antigone's point here, and that is, and I did this too, to tell you the truth, is you go to stuff because you think you have to, right? And then everybody tells you, well, you have to do these things, and you know, I find that, you know, this happens to a lot of crowns. They're like, you have to pay attention to every activity and there are more and more SCA activities every minute, it seems. And next thing you know, you're fencing and you're arching and you're throwing axes and you're throwing darts and you're doing ANS and you're doing horse stuff and you're doing dog stuff and you're doing, and then the thing that you really love about the SCA isn't actually not only the one thing, but the many things that you love about the SCA are dwindling in time, and you lose the fun. So I think this is one of these scenarios where sometimes going away allows you just to focus on the thing you love, or you have to decide, right? You like you, Bess, you have to decide what you really like, because to tell you the truth, after doing something you don't like for long enough, you just stop doing it.
Well, oh, great. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go. I'm going to spend all this money. I'm not going to have a great time. I could have been doing some gardening and growing peas or taking the dogs for a walk. Instead, I'm kind of resentful. I spent another day driving an hour and a half to be at an event for 3 hours because I had to be there when I really wanted to, I don't know, go see my sisters in Toronto or something, but I had to or obliged. So if you pick and choose. And we had that quote up from Antigone about, and you were referencing it, Brannos. This is going to sound like, oh, poor little Bess. I was heir to Eldemir's crown or coronet at Pennsic one year, and I was so busy. I had all these schedules, and this is going to sound so stupid, and I know this, but I had all this scheduled fun. Go here, have fun. Go here, have fun. Go here, have fun. So goddamn tired of fun. I just wanted to sit down and relax and not have fun. And it's like that, Brannos, I think what you were saying as Crown, you focused, and Antigone, you were saying about going off and doing all the things I was told I had to do, because you got to do it, because that's what we do. And you're like, no, I'm tired of having to have fun in the way everybody else is telling me I have to have fun. I just want to have fun in my own way and enjoy it my own way. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say I was tired of having fun, all this scheduled fun, because who doesn't want to have fun? Turned out I didn't. After about the 5th day of action-packed fun, I just wanted to sit down and relax.
Yeah. Hey, Barry, I mean, you fight a lot, I know, and you go to practice all the time and stuff like that, right? Exactly. I mean, you run, you do all kinds of crazy stuff. How did you find, like, because you were doing pickup and you were doing battles, how did you find it for, 4 or 5 days straight? I mean, at Golf Wars, it seemed like you were doing more pickup than you do at Pennsic usually. So,
Oh, actually, I didn't do any pickups at Golf Wars.
oh, I thought you did. I saw you out there.
Yeah, no, I was out there just
around in armor. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm the guy that walks around and tells everybody about how I fight all the time and how I correct what they're doing.
Perfect.
Yeah, I do all that stuff. I'm the guy that
You're never enough people like that.
Sometimes I'll take like an hour to put on my armor, then I'll get like one pass. I'll say, boy, that was really good. Take my armor off. No, but
well, it's good that we all know that now when you go to war next year. I'm sure Sven and the boys are listening.
Yep. Well, Sven is in the comment section. I did see that. So yeah, no, I will say that. Well, and my reasoning. Well, okay, actually, a little bit of bigger picture stuff here. So we talked before about being able to get like more different types of people fighting in. So a goal of mine this year was to go to Burka. And for those who don't know, Burka is a 3-hour bear pit tourney. I got in 112 fights, just to give you an idea of how many fights you do on this tourney. And you just keep going. Whether you win or lose, you keep going for 3 hours. So I got in a lot of fights. And that was a goal of mine. In fact, I skipped several practices up to that. I went to the practices, but I didn't put armor on because I got a bad shoulder. I want to make sure my shoulder is ready for Burka because I thought I was going to get more value out of fighting all of those people than I would fighting the same people at practice all the time. And then also on my radar is to go to Ice Dragon. I think it's 2 weeks from now for the same reason. Ice Dragon, we call it mini Burka. It's the same sort of concept, just a little small. It's 2 hours instead of 3 hours. I think it's about half as many people, and that's up in Buffalo in Ethelmark. So I'm targeting that. And I was hoping to be able to go. And I did Adult Swim. Duke Timothy's Adult Swim, also in Ethelmark. Same reason. And yeah, my shoulder wasn't able to hold up between the different events. So going to Golf Wars, I had to pretty much say, yeah, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to go down there, talk to some people. But the nice thing about Golf Wars, what's that? I know, we're good. Nice thing about Golf Wars compared to Pennsic is it's just much easier to get around. It's a little smaller. The pickup community is really big. I was surprised. We had a fort battle at about noon, and then a bridge battle a couple hours after that, and probably maybe an hour between the two. And I was just amazed at how quickly that field filled up with pickup fighting. Just pickup fights all over the place.
Yeah, there's actually, I want to bring this one up.
I thought it was a great pickup fight venue.
What's that?
I said Golf Wars to me was always a great pickup fight venue.
Yeah, it died out for a little while.
Did it? Yeah. It's been a while since I've been, but when I was down there was, you could look out over the field and you could basically see, more beginner, intermediate, advanced, and you could go where you wanted to, where you felt, you were ready to go. And you always get very friendly fights, people wanting to help out, help you learn, that sort of thing. It was really good.
Yeah, I have to say this year, there was some of the pickup, like the day off, there was pickup across the whole field. was, I mean,
Wow.
it was huge. The thing I really enjoyed about it is, and somebody posted on it. I'm actually looking for the post because I asked them, well, who did you get to do pickup with? And,
Oh, yeah.
it was interesting because they answered that post with a number of knights and royal peers that they got to do pickups with. And one of the interesting parts about this is, how many times you get the chance to do that? Even at Penzic, it's sometimes hard because those people tend to get lined up pretty fast. But at Golf Wars, it seemed like there's a lot more opportunity to do that. So it was interesting. I mean, give you a feel for it at Golf Wars. I think it was, again, one of the very early Golf Wars.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him again?
Where I had it. Yeah, you're losing me.
And he's doing a little Max Headroom. I think you're back.
Sorry about that, folks. It seems like my computer is not liking me today.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I was just saying that it was really, one of the early Golf Wars where I met Sven for the first time when he was pretty brand new in the SCA, and it was out on the pickup field. So that goes to another point. I think a lot of times we talk about traveling with our own group, or like when we go to events, we kind of know everybody, and it's very comfortable. Sometimes putting yourself outside that comfort level and having to meet people helps you expand as a person, and really helps you expand as a fighter.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I would say, if I, Bess, have a friend from here going down to a place where I know a lot of people, I can always do something ahead of time, like reach out and, hey, Brannos, I got a friend coming down. Would you just, I'd like to make an introduction here over like electronically. Brannos, this is my friend so-and-so, so-and-so, this is my friend Brannos. So at least somebody has a face that they can talk to. I know it's hard. It's a good idea to go out and meet people, but that can be hard. That's one of the reasons we were talking before the show. So many of my friends that I have and I've had for a long time have been fighters, because it gives you something immediately to talk about, immediately to connect over. And it's interesting. You can share things back and forth like that, but it is intimidating. Like, I'm kind of shy if I go to places I don't know people. Like it's hard for me to go up and go, hi, you're all friends in a group chatting. I'm Elizabeth. Hi, I'm on Coach's Corner. You probably know me. Would you like an autograph? But it's hard. It's hard to work your way in if you don't know a lot of people, right? So
But Bess, don't you get the opposite with people saying you're Bess from Coach's Corner?
At Penzic, occasionally on Penzic, somebody will go up to me and go, I've seen you on Coach's Corner. You should stop that. But
nobody says that.
It's hard for all. No, they haven't. It's hard for all of us. So it's really important to. So if you're going somewhere, it's nice to travel with somebody who might know somebody there, and that way you don't have to glom on to each other and like be there. But at least there's somebody you can hang out with and meet up with afterwards. And say, how was your day? I was talking to somebody chatting in the comments, and one of the things they were saying was it's nice to go out to an event and get to know people. One of the things, Tris, was it you saying that when you're fighting at home all the time, you know everybody, you know what they do, they know what you do. You can be king of your practice because, well, it's the same 3 people doing the same 3 things, or 20 people, but it's the same small group. But if you go to a new place, that's when you find out what you really know. That's when you find out if you know what you think you know. I think I can control the fight. Well, can you? Or is it this guy only ever moves to the right? So you're not controlling the fight. You just know the guy goes to the right, or he always starts with a thrust, or, but if you go to some place where you don't know what they do, when you're watching it, can you see what they're going to do? Can you predict? Can you move? Can you work with them? Do you just look at them and go, I have no idea what the hell you're doing or how you're doing that, but now I'm dead? Because that's a really good learning opportunity. Even if you die very quickly, like you're like, well, I died really quickly. I got to find out how I died, other than, well, you hit me in the head. I got that part. So that's a really great challenge. And I would encourage people to do that. And, and I want to point out, did you hear Brannos earlier today? Like the mighty Duke Brannos, we all bow at him and, you know, and say his name with reverence, and angels, you know, are singing in the background. But he wasn't afraid to say to you guys, I went to Gulf Wars. I didn't do my best because I was coming out of recovery, out of, you know, stuff. And look, I was still there, and I still did it. And I don't think anybody who fought Brannos at Gulf War went, Jesus Christ, that's Brannos? Well, okay then. And that's Brannos putting ego to one side. He could have, sorry, Brannos, I know I'm talking about you like you're not here, but I think you're a really good example. I think what you said tonight was a really good example, and I don't want it glossed over. So many of us, myself included, when I'm hurt, because, you know, my shoulder, I get hurt, I'm shy to go. I don't want to fight people I haven't fought because they'll go, well, shit, really? That's it? That's what you got? And you have to let ego go. So I admire Brannos for being willing to say that, you know, to all of you, and to share that, and to go to Gulf War. And like all my joking about the mighty Duke Brannos aside, although I'm really still serious about it, it's okay to go and say to somebody, I've been injured. When we do things, I am not going to be able to do my best. I can't lift my shoulder up, or I'm not going to, I had knee surgery. I can't step to the left. So if you tell me that I'm not stepping to the left, I'm going to tell you, I know. Could you focus on what else I can do? And then, you know, it's letting ego go. And that's really freaking hard. And it's, you know, it's going to take some practice, but if you're upfront ahead of time, you know, then it's okay to do. Please don't be embarrassed. If you say to somebody, I'm here and I'm hurt and I'm trying, or I'm not as good as you, but I'm here to learn because I want to be as good as you. If somebody beats you, then that's okay, isn't it?
By the way, real quick, I'm reading the comments section. It's full of people going, oh man, I didn't know Brannos was injured. I thought I was having a really good day against him. Now, one person did say His Grace still beat me like a drum. So
sorry, Brannos. I hope I didn't embarrass you, but I thought that's super important. And by the way, I think you're muted.
yeah, we cannot hear you.
Okay, I am still having issues with my computer.
You're there,
guys. I think Bess, this goes along with what was posted here. You want that? All right, there you go. That you know, sometimes if you can't fight, and there is expense, there's other things you can still do. And yes, it's not going to be as fun as fighting, but I think there's, like me going to Gulf Wars, if I stop fighting when I'm not my best, I'm going to be miserable anyways. So, you know, sometimes just going is the most important part, and getting a chance to see people, talk to people. Because people like being around you too. And in the end, you know, it's the people and not really the fighting, because you can be a great fighter and still be very lonely. And you know, so, you know, just remember that. And it doesn't mean maybe you cut back on your events. Maybe you spend more time doing PT. Maybe you bring stuff to do PT at the event. You know, think outside the box. That's what I'm saying to people is and be grateful. And I think this is the key I've been really focusing on, is since, you know, I went from at least 2 doctors telling me I'd never be able to fight again, to being grateful for every time I get to fight, if I get beat up or not, right? And at least I get to be on the field with so many other great people, and great people training and learning. I can still listen. Sometimes I can even still help a little bit. And, you know, that's, you know, I think the big part. And not only am I, that whole grateful piece for me hasn't gone only for being grateful on the field, but I'm also super grateful for all the people that are spreading the knowledge. I told some people at Gulf Wars this year, I'm like, well, you know, because they were, you know, kind of doing the, you know, you help me all this stuff. And I'm like, well, you'd love to know that I send all your videos now to people, because in many cases, there's a number of videos I send from other people who've done better jobs or explained it better than I think just have a better way that they put the video together to help folks, or it hit the spot that I believe these folks needed help with. So I send a lot more video out of other people now, because I'm grateful that people are doing it, and they need their recognition too. So,
Could I jump in with one
you know,
too? And I remember this
Yeah,
from Gulf Wars, because when I went, I really liked doing the pickups, but what I liked even more was sitting on the sidelines and basically watching multiple fights going on, and analyzing different styles, seeing how people fought differently, what worked, how they did it, and then try to break down, well, how did they do that? What movements do they need to do to execute what they did? The very first time I was exposed to that was, and when Bess was talking about this, of not just visiting another place, but actually moving somewhere. I moved from Minneapolis down to Dallas for a contract job, a little over a year. So I was in a whole different place, different set of practices, different set of fighters, different fighting culture. Like, everything was different. And so I had to really put on a whole new look. And this was before I was squired. So, I was intermediate experience in a very kind of backwater place at the time. But, I would go down there and I would see shield shapes I've never seen before, armor that was different than I was used to, fighting style completely different. There was a whole lot of sword and shield with big rectangular shields, very little polearm fighting. At the time, there was no real two-sword fighting, almost zero bastard sword stuff. So being able to study entirely different styles, and at the time, this was back when the mid-realm still had the 26-inch shield maximum. So I show up down there with a 26-inch heater, and there's these guys with 2 foot by 3 foot rectangles. Like, that was the standard. So it made me study, it made me analyze, and it kind of shook my brain a little bit to say, don't just try to look at minor things. You've got to look at major differences. The footwork was different, or lack thereof, totally different. Like, it almost was like a whole different world. And I recall being taken to Duke Inman's practice, and it was basically a bunch of knights and then me. And I would watch how Inman would move. I mean, because he was a legend of Anstiora, and a tremendous fighter, tremendous martial artist, tremendous competitor. And watching how he would take these guys apart. I mean, one at a time. And it's like, well, my time's going to come up sooner or later. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do against this monster. It was really, it spurred me into the analysis part of watching fighting and studying it, whether it was from, I'm going to be this person's opponent and I need to figure out how to face them, or they're doing something really cool that I want to learn how to do. How am I going to copy it, or how am I going to adapt it myself? And once I moved back, that's when Brannos and I crossed paths, and I started to see how he would coach people, and I admired that a great deal. But it really came down to a lot of analysis. And in my opinion, Gulf Wars and Penzic are both very good for that venue where even if you can't fight, go and study how they're doing it. And now with all these videos that people are posting up of champions fights, tournaments, you can really hone yourself in studying. And I think with Duke Alaric and his great fights of YouTube on Tuesday nights, same thing. You learn that analysis piece, and that's a skill in and of itself to build, from not only a fighter but a coach. And both come over there. And I remember walking my housemates and people that wanted to learn how to fight through how to study a fight, how to sit there and watch it, and what to be looking for. So these are good skills to have to learn, even when you can't go out and put your helmet on and learn through trial and error.
And that's the mental part that we talked about, in the title. And that is, like, when you travel somewhere else, and we talked about it a lot so far, when you travel somewhere else, you get that opportunity to see a fight that's different. And you get to able to analyze that fight more and figure out what's really happening. So, okay, hold on. There we go. Oh, I think I stepped on Sadb again. Pardon me, Sadb. Thank you. That's the mental part. So we talked a little bit physically on how it affects our body, right? I mean, multiple day seminars, multiple day fighting. I mean, not a lot of people fight back to back, day after day after day after day. And then we have the mental part where we're learning so many different things from so many different people. How do we handle that? But not only do we have that, but we're watching fights and seeing stuff and trying. So mentally, we're broadening our scope of what we understand. I would tell everybody that, oops, looks like I'm going a little crazy here. I would tell everybody to write the stuff down that was most important to them that they learned at Penzic. If you didn't have a chance, or at Gulf Wars, if you didn't have a chance there, or whatever event, to tell you the truth, if you didn't have the chance there, write down what you enjoyed the most so you can refer back to it when you get home. Because that coach ain't going to be there. Good part is you can reach out now and do that. But, you know, if Barry was like, hey, do this, and you're like, oh, damn, that was the best thing, but I already forgot it. Right. So, you know, the idea is if you have it written down, you remember that you liked it and you want to try it. And, you know, Barry will, of course, be there to answer any questions that you guys have, including any maintenance on your vehicle. So
what about that?
But, you know, and then spiritually, that's, you know, those friendships, those relationships, and all of the positivity that can come out of this, if you allow it, like Tristan and Bess both covered really deeply, if you allow it, and that is a big piece. And you know, you can get a lot out of that. Last piece, you know, one last piece, and I don't want to turn into the negative, but, you know, there are people that leave events with a negative experience. And I think what I would say about that, and those negative experiences could be, you know, well, you know, true story. You know, well, Brannos hit me 12 times in the knee. Okay, maybe 12 exaggerating. That's the way it felt like to me. And, you know, some of that is 6 weeks off. Some of that is just bad, bad technique. You know, I would hope that, you know, I tried to apologize as much as I could, but, you know, that's not a great experience. I was like, do I really want to fight that guy again? He hit me in the knee a bunch of times, right? You know, or, you know, are you the guy that abuses people? Because if that's you, then you may be actually ruining it for someone else down the road, that maybe they don't come back to golf course. Maybe you turn that experience into a negative experience. Maybe your temper went off, or you did something triggered you.
Uh-oh. We lost him again, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, and I can even add one in there too, and that maybe, rather than being self-focused, is somebody dumped their garbage onto you. Because as people bring stress, they bring their frustrations, and they let them out, sometimes when they don't intend to, or sometimes when they do intend to, and you just happen to be in the blast radius. It is a practice of your own mental health to be able to shed the garbage that's thrown on you when maybe it wasn't meant to be on you, or maybe it's just something you don't want to walk away from that exchange with and say, you know, I'm sorry you're upset or you feel this way, but I'd love to help you, but I can't, but I'm not going to take on, you know, you have to think to yourself, I'm not taking on somebody else's frustration or somebody else's kind of mental trash. Because that's the one thing about humans, right? Is oftentimes when we get frustrated, we want to vent and we want to unload our burden onto somebody else, whether they're friends or even just somebody just walked around the corner, and, you know, we, in a raw moment, we, you know, unleash on. This is the nature of road rage, right? Of, I don't know that guy, but I'm pissed off at him, and I'm going to scream at my windshield, you know, profanities, and be flipping people off and all this sort of stuff. And I don't think that the SCA is entirely immune from that, but having your own mental boundaries and your fence set up so that you can say, I can understand somebody being frustrated, but I'm not going to take this personally. I'm not going to let this become my mess. I'll try to help if I can, and that's whether it's people or your friends versus people you don't know. I mean, you have to kind of sort out what can you help them with, or what do you realize there's nothing I can do to help. I just need to maybe not be here, or maybe I'm the catalyst that's causing this frustration and I need to, move on or something like that. These are all the challenges, right, of kind of being around people. This is, and being isolated for a couple of years, people get rusty with their social skills. And it takes a little bit more grace to let them have their rough spots and be as forgiving as possible, or at least understanding, so that you're not amplifying the drama or the crisis. You're helping dampen it, or even help them heal it if you can, and that's, I don't think there's a formula for how to do that exactly, but not making the situation worse, I think, is the first step. And then, if you have it, I think, in your heart to say, I would like everybody to leave from this event being glad they came, including yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. In fact, it's easy if you do that to others. It becomes easy for you to get that back.
If you have that intention, you have a far better chance of succeeding.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. I was just talking to a Duke that doesn't really play much anymore, and he was like kind of one of the more competitive kind of people in the sport. I like the guy, but we'll just say a little more competitive kind of person. And I just made a comment to him that I don't throw a lot of face shots with my spear. I tend to throw more for the body, because people sometimes get upset if you get hit a little too hard in the face. And so if there's a choice between the two, I'll just go for the body shot. And his comment was, well, hey, they know what they signed up for. They know what they're getting into. And I was like, but if I don't have to, I'm not going to. It's different. If Tristan and I are in the finals of the known world spear tournament, one of us might get rocked in the face. But I don't need to do that to the person that's like 2 years in their armor at their second event, second big event.
And the thing is, you may not know who they are. So that goes back to rule number 1. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? Don't be a dick.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes even further. Be the opposite of a dick. Like, try to be the best. I don't know what the opposite of a dick is, but
be the best good person. And
the best good person you could be.
Tristan, you talked about it, but I actually, it's woo-woo, but I actually believe this part. I believe that when you start focusing something, you start seeing it more and more. If you look for the rhino hides, if you look for the cheater heads, if you look for the people who are doing things right, if you look for the people who are working the rules, you're going to see it. But the vast majority, because it's confirmational bias, right? That's what you're looking for. But if you're focusing on the people who are having fun, if you're focusing on the good stuff, that's what you're going to see. And, if that makes me a Pollyanna, then so be it. I'd rather focus on the good stuff and walk away having a fun time and hopefully conveying my joy to other people. Even if it's like, wow, yep, you killed me dead. I am so dead. How did I do? I totally missed that. Wow, I'm really, really dead. I'll go be dead now. I can just laugh at, like, I totally missed it, or I can be mad that Bari got me in the body and it was good. But I really do think it's important to focus on the good. And Tristan was saying not to exacerbate it. You know what? Even if in your heart of hearts you think the other guy's just going on and on, you've honestly apologized. I hit you in the knee. It was a mistake. It wasn't intentional. I don't aim for it, and I apologize. And they're just going on and on. If at the very least you could not call them a dick to their face, if at least you say nothing, then you haven't exacerbated the situation, and hopefully that will help them calm down. They can walk away from it and go, well, I vented. Well, now I feel stupid. And then they come back and hopefully be a little calmer. Just a little something. Like, hopefully you can do it with love in your heart.
Hey, Bess, actually, I want to touch on something related to that I was thinking about since Golf Wars, only because I happen to see this. And I'm going to send this out to the world just so all 15 that are listening, I don't know how many are listening, but send it out to the world just so that they can think about this. So a lot of times somebody will hit someone, they'll give them the friendly shot, So let's say Brannos doesn't see me, or not even Brannos, random person I don't know doesn't see me, and I hit him with the friendly shot. And they turn around, they say, no, that was no good. That was too light. I typically say, hey, just so you know, I was being pretty friendly there. And because I could have really hit you and I didn't want to hurt you. And usually they'll take the shot. And if they don't, I just move on with my life because, okay, legally they don't have to.
They're right. Technically, it was a light shot.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're talking about one shot in a 90-minute resurrection battle with some random person out there. What I see sometimes, I actually saw this at Golf Wars. Golf Wars was super friendly the whole time. I did see one incident where a person had hit someone, and instead of saying, hey, I was being really friendly there, the person says kind of aggressively, I can hit you a lot harder. And you're instantly, you're kind of threatening them. You're kind of saying, hey, buddy, if you don't take that, you're really going to get hurt next time.
Yeah.
And now who's the asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so just in general, I think I've said that before and hopefully way in the past, but yeah, just there's always ways you can sort of approach things and always try to, as best as don't exacerbate the situation, always try to bring it down and understand that at the end of the day, there's only really a few times that it really matters who wins or loses. I mean, even at our local practice, we'll get into Brannos. I actually saw, it was on one of the videos of you fighting. Somebody hit you or you hit somebody, and there was a communication where the person was like, oh, I thought we weren't taking those. And you said something like, this is a practice. I figure we'll just fight. And we'll just talk about it.
Yeah.
Rather than, hey, here we are. We're both going to walk away going, oh, I got 4 kills and he only got 2. Therefore, I won the practice. And yeah.
It really doesn't matter, especially when that was a lot of Golf Wars actually with some top end folks. It was really all about just, hey, did you defeat me? Did you touch me? You didn't have to hit me hard. All you had to do is touch, and we were happy because then we could just keep moving on, right? I mean, that's what we wanted. Instead of worry about this shot, worry about that shot, worry about you not taking a shot, worry about getting hit too hard, about all of those things. And I think that's, it really, for pickup, where there is no win, was very beneficial. Everybody was having a very good time. It's like, so you think that was good? Sure, I don't care. Let's move on. We got 10 more fights to go.
Hey, Bess, you have this comment in here, and I actually would like to address that.
Okay, so that was a question. That's a viewer question.
Okay.
Is that the one from
It came in through, Foxtrot through, yes, there we go. So this was in relation to when we were talking about if someone's not taking your blows in a melee.
No, this is actually, he later clarifies that this is an attorney.
Yeah, so later on, I was about to say, so later, this question came in as we were talking about that, but then later on, he clarified it in a tournament. I am a big believer in using your words. I'm a big believer in getting help. Later on, he goes on to ask as well. So I'm mainly talking about tourney. Are you just supposed to let them do their business? And I think by that, they mean be kind of hinky in the way that you're taking your blows and let the crowd call them or hold them accountable. Well, first things first, some kingdoms will have different traditions. So I'm going to speak in general because Foxtrot, I don't know what kingdom you're from. Some kingdoms will have more active marshalling. And so you might have a marshal say, hey, hang on a second. That was a good blow, and we notice that you didn't take it. The marshals might stop the fight. I think because you've asked the question this way, as opposed to saying, well, do the marshals step in, that you're coming from a kingdom that doesn't have a tradition of active marshalling. In that case, any fighter is within their rights to call a hold and to say, I think we have an issue now, to bring the marshals in, because the marshals are there as independent viewers and helpers. There's a word in my mind, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But they're giving you impartial advice on what they saw. So if you truly believe someone's not taking your shots, then you're within your rights to call a hold. And I believe in this so strongly. God help me, I was watching a video of myself fighting in a crown a few years ago. And I watched myself, and I was looking at myself not take some shots. And then I watched myself call a hold, bring the marshals in, and ask about me. I'm not taking those shots. Why aren't I taking them? Which is to say, what's wrong with them? Like I'm calling them not any good. Am I doing the right thing by calling them no good? Asking an impartial observer what's going on is always okay. We don't leave it to the crowd. We don't leave it to, I can't call your shots. Our rules are very clear. The fighters call their blows. Marshals can give input. I thought that was good. I understand that you thought that was the point of your shield hitting you in your leg, and so you didn't take the leg blow, but in point of fact, that was the sword hitting you. So I would encourage you, if you're really feeling that there's some problems in a tourney, or as you enter a bout in a tournament, if you know that you might have issues with a fighter, speak to the marshals beforehand. I would like your help in this fight, because when I fight this person, I have noticed this in the past. I would like your help if I'm doing something wrong. And I don't believe that's wrong. You're not accusing somebody of cheating. You're saying, I have noticed this in the past, and I would like your impartial advice. And, sirs, have you comments to make on that?
I have a quick one.
I'd like to jump in on one part of this, and that is, and it's a great question. We could do a whole episode on this.
Yes, we could.
Easily. So just to summarize, though, to condense it way down, what I would advise people is, if you can hit somebody once, you can hit them again. The very first thing that should be in your mind is you would rather not win by negotiation. You don't want to win by accusing them of cheating or having them interpret what you are saying as accusing them of cheating. You certainly can, if you're in a kingdom or that you have somewhat active marshaling, go the route that Bess was talking about. But let's assume there are no marshals there. Maybe this is a pickup field. Maybe this is, who knows what your thing is. My recommendation would be have grace about it. Don't get into it with somebody. If it's somebody you just met or you just walked up to and you're fighting and you don't know what their culture is, maybe you could say, hey, what's the calibration of where you're from? And get some understanding. Like I'm from XY kingdom. You're from, where are you from? You can easily dialogue on it, but don't worry about it. I would say, if you're so focused on, I have to get that person to take this one shot because that was my one chance, your attitude is in the wrong place, right? And all it's gonna do is it's gonna grind down your soul of whatever it is of your thinking that allows it to express that way. So find a healthier way to do it. If let's say you're bringing out your top 3 or 4 methods, and say they're not working. I squeaked one in, and now I can't work something else. The art of SCA fighting is not how much pounds per square inch you can put on your shot. It's convincing your opponent that they've been bested. Think of it that way, not of how hard I have to hit or how many times I have to hit. Think of it in different terms. Outmaneuver your opponent would be my recommendation. But I was more of a dexterity type fighter, so maneuvering was kind of my thing. But outsmart your opponent, outmaneuver them. Don't
give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, absolutely. That's my
and I wanted to
very good.
Yeah, get my perspective on that. And I think that the key word there is whatever you do it with grace. I'm kind of with Bess on the conversation part, but again, if it doesn't work, then you just have to move on and don't let it ruin your hobby. But there was one example. I actually saw a video of a pretty high level unbelt fight that happened at Golf Wars. And in the video, one person clearly hit the other person in the head and pretty hard, really hard. And the other person didn't take it. And they pulled in. He had a question about it. They pulled in the marshals. The marshals, the guy my understanding is the guy said, oh, I thought it skipped off the top of my helmet. And the marshals all said, yeah, I don't think that skipped off the top of your helmet. And he was like, oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'll take it then. And he leaves. And I told the guy who ended up winning the fight of the result, I said, I'm kind of glad you said something because you probably did that guy a favor, because it's better that he was able to have that conversation and concede the fight than to have won the fight with that video going around of everybody going, wow, this guy blows off shots to win fights. So in this day and age with so much video and stuff out there, so there's always that kind of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it's like Tristan said, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to convince your opponent that they've been beaten. But I also agree with Bess that sometimes mistakes are made and you can have that conversation. And almost everything gets erased in about 2 years. So
there you are.
Some tourney you lost 2 years ago because of that. Hopefully you get over it and you've done better things since then.
Okay. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end of the episode, and I thank everybody for hanging out with us and throwing some good. We got a lot of good things to talk about there. I thank everybody that was at Golf Wars and stuff for coming and watching, throwing stuff out there, and personal thanks to them for going and helping me enjoy my time again at Golf Wars. And a huge thanks to all the folks, you know, all the coaches here who jumped on and shared their thoughts on all this, because you know, I'm hoping that in the end we, you know, and again, not to be, you know, like Bess Pollyanna about stuff, but I'm hoping that we help people look on the positive sides of stuff, because I'm going to tell you, training in the negative will get you nowhere. But training, believing not only that you can do it, but others can do it, and that others aren't out there to get you, it helps you evolve much faster in the positive than in the negative. And you can go almost anywhere and see that. First thing they say, like I said, you know, you have the negative people, you know, watch negative people in your life dragging you down. So, but Tristan, I think we have like one of your favorite episodes coming up next week. At least we do them all the time. I'm not sure. Are we going to do this one? This is a book episode, or not next week, 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks. Yeah.
But we didn't name the book.
We got another book episode coming up again. I've been so busy, I haven't not checked the schedule, but
yep, we do.
Nice.
So we have to come up with which. Oh, look at that! See, now Bess can't get up. She didn't want to do this.
It's back.
I got tagged and conveniently located.
That's too funny, Bess. Nice. Tristan made you a believer.
She has been studying this well.
Oh, nice.
Classic.
So yeah, so we'll nail that. We'll talk about what part we're going to talk about that if we do Book of Five Rings. And but meanwhile, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend and week. Keep it positive out there, and remember, there's probably a flight practice around the corner, so you should go visit. So, and other than that, everybody have a wonderful night. And
have a good night, everybody.
See you soon.